All right, so wonderful. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I will give everyone a couple minutes here to notice that we're going live on Facebook, but we have our special guest tonight. Her name's Amanda Schisler. She does own her own coaching company, and it's Amanda Schisler Fitness, correct? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. But Amanda does specialize in women's hormones, and that's why we brought her on tonight so that she can share some of the wonderful knowledge that she has with all of you here in the group. I know we have a lot of people in our group that are just wildly interested in women's hormones and how things change and fluctuate through life. And I think this is going to be awesome. And I'm super excited to let Amanda share the information that she has with you tonight.
Well, thanks for having me as a guest, Clarissa. I'm happy to talk about these things with your group. This is like my love language.
Language, I love that. I'm gonna
Yes,
pull up Facebook.
hormones. Okay. You let me know whenever you want me to get going and I'll just dive right in.
Go ahead. Actually, I would love if you would share a little bit about how you became interested in women's hormones.
Sure, absolutely. So without going into some crazy lengthy history of my own experiences of where I am currently, I started off as a Beachbody coach, not proud of that, but unfortunately, that's how I found my interest in fitness and lifting specifically. And then once I realized you don't get any education from Beachbody, I was like, well, I'm going to have to pursue like a real education because I want to actually help people, not sell them shakes for the rest of my life. So I was at my most unhealthy at my lowest weight. So just to kind of paint a picture that your size is not necessarily a reflection of what's going on internally. I have had 2 children, so I have been through many weight fluctuations with gaining 40 pounds with each pregnancy, having to recover from postpartum recovery and lose that baby weight. So I've experienced a lot of hormonal fluctuations myself. And also like just coaching women has always been my passion. I love working with women specifically. And as my education, like continuing education has gone on, I have found that hormones have a major impact on everything, any kind of result. And I was like, wow, like this is what's like really a missing component in so many coaching programs is women's hormones aren't being addressed. And we're so taught in our society that chronic dieting is totally normal and acceptable and that we need to starve and restrict to get any type of weight loss result. And every time women do that, they jack their hormones up more than the diet prior. So I was like, wow, we've got to like help women at like a microscopic level before things are going to change on the outside. If you're not fixing what's going on internally, that's going to unfortunately show in some way on the outside, or you're going to end up sick or with disease.
Mm-hmm. No.
So that's really how I got into it. And the more I've learned, I'm like, the better I can help women and kind of undo some bad information that floats around out there, which there's a lot of it.
Yes, there's so much bad information. Like you were talking about restricting and not eating and everything, and it like instantly brought up for me intermittent fasting. And I know we get questions about that all the time. I'm just curious, where are your thoughts on that?
So I think people have this misconception that intermittent fasting is some sort of magic solution that they just thought that they were missing, when in reality, it actually can really harm women's hormones. We fast while we're asleep. We don't need to extend the fast when we wake up. We shouldn't be trying to cram our nutritional needs in this tiny little window throughout the day, when in reality, it's really important to eat regularly to keep your blood sugar stable, because when your blood sugar is not stable, then other chemical processes can start to happen. And eating is really important. We need to get out of that mindset that eating less and restriction is the answer to our problems. It causes more detriment than anything, psychologically, physically, all of it. Not a big fan of intermittent fasting personally, not at least for the women that I help.
No, I agree 1000%. How do you feel that the whole like intermittent fasting approach affects the women that are perimenopausal?
Oh, okay. So when you don't eat, that is a stressor to your body. And when your body is stressed, you produce a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is actually a really important hormone. And I know it has a bad reputation because people really only hear the negative things that cortisol does for our bodies. But when we're producing too much cortisol, it's a bad thing. When we're not producing enough cortisol, it's a bad thing. But when you're stressed specifically by things like not eating on top of your regular everyday stressors, having to go to work, take care of kids, etc., your body will prioritize survival over anything else. And when you're stressed, your body only knows that it's in fight or flight. It's preparing for you to either run away from some type of predator or get ready to throw down, because in our most primitive days, that's what real threats were. We're running from a bear or fighting something. So your body only knows stress as stress, and layering stress on top of stress on top of stress puts you in a really bad place hormonally, because your body prioritizes creating cortisol over a really important sex hormone called progesterone. Progesterone and cortisol are kind of made out of the same ingredients, for lack of better words. So if your body's prioritizing survival and you're not producing progesterone, that means you're probably not ovulating. And then there's a whole slew of consequences that go along with all of these hormone imbalances.
Yes, that's so freaking true. It's like, I think that the aspect of the autophagy and the growth hormone boosting components of intermittent fasting have been so glorified. No one's ever stopped to look at what the negative effects are for women. And I don't even honestly think there's studies. So like everything that we're saying is purely anecdotal, but it's freaking true. We work with too many people for it not to be true.
Yeah, there's a lot of really conflicting information on intermittent fasting as far as like a medical standpoint and a science standpoint goes. Like you said, I don't think there's enough research on it. I think in like very small instances, it's like beneficial for diabetics, type 2 diabetics,
Yes.
but
and
not
having insulin response and all of that.
right.
Yeah.
Right. But otherwise, you don't want to do that on your own. That's when you're like working with an RD and they're telling you to do these things. Not like we should just stop eating in the morning because I'm going to give myself an 8-hour window to cram all my calories in there.
Right. And two, I mean, if you're only giving yourself 8 hours to eat every day, we're honestly so conditioned to eating less that we're never going to be able to fit what we need to into that small window anyhow.
Right. Or I found that people are like, oh my God, I only have 8 hours to eat. So they just go crazy and eat, but they end up overeating in that time frame because they're in that scarcity mindset. Well, I'm not going to be able to eat for the next 16 hours. I got to eat all this food in this 8-hour window.
Yeah. So then that's more stress.
Exactly. And boy, let me tell you, as I'm diving further into estrogen and progesterone, you're going to hear a repetitive theme. That stress, if you are not managing your stress, you are doing an insane amount of harm to yourself. Stress is probably one of the biggest contributors to hormone imbalances, particularly in women. So if you're a really stressed out lady, you've got to find ways to manage your stress, and that looks different for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really does. But that brings me like to a nutritional question then too. There is a particular nutrient that can help with lowering stress. And that's a nutrient that women tend to kind of avoid because they're always worried about gaining weight. So how does carbohydrate intake affect cortisol production?
Again, like another stressor. We need carbohydrates for energy. That is our body's most preferred source of energy and most easily accessible source of energy. So if you are not eating enough carbohydrates, you're not bringing enough glucose into your blood. And then our body is going to start looking for other ways to get the energy that it needs. And most of the time, that's going to be from your muscle tissue. So your body will break down what existing muscle tissue you have to give it enough energy for you to do all the things you need to do throughout your day. And that's not including exercise. So if you're under eating, especially with carbohydrates, and then you're working out on top of it and trying to do things like keto, where the theory is that your body is relying on ketones, you're going to end up with a higher cortisol output because you're, again, stressing the body out in a terrible way. and then you're doing a disservice to your metabolism by having your muscle tissue being eaten up for the sake of keeping you alive. We want to have a lot of muscle tissue so that have a better metabolism.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's so important, and it is so misunderstood. But another reason that we want to continue to have that higher amount of muscle mass, I mean, yes, it's fantastic for our metabolism, but we also want that as we're going into menopause, simply because of the risk of osteoporosis. So if we have a higher muscle amount, it's going to help keep our bone density a little bit higher, which is super important for helping to prevent the osteoporosis. And yeah, doing intermittent fasting and low calorie diets and lots of cardio are just super counterproductive.
100%. So one thing I wanted to talk on, if your group is wanting to hear about, is estrogen dominance, and then how that's in relation to progesterone. These are the two, we'll say, primary sex hormones that women produce. There's other sex hormones, like women have testosterone, not as much as men, but estrogen and progesterone, two most important, especially, it doesn't even matter what age we're talking about. From the time you start to get a menstrual cycle till long after your period ends, these hormones are vital to women's health. They are not just important to reproduction. Our bodies need estrogen for brain and bone health, and then progesterone, same thing. And if you have too much estrogen, that's a problem. If you don't have enough progesterone, that's a problem. And the two are highly correlated. Estrogen is like excess estrogen or estrogen dominance, meaning the dominant hormone. If you have too much of that, it means that you're not producing enough progesterone to cancel out the excess estrogen. Or maybe you are producing a lot of progesterone, but you're so stressed out that your body is blocking progesterone receptors. So that hormone is not going to do the things that it needs to do. And then you end up with too much estrogen in the body. So a lot of times when women get diagnosed with high estrogen, that's like very vague. That most likely means you just don't have enough progesterone. Most women don't overproduce estrogen. That's actually a really uncommon type of estrogen dominance. Most common type of estrogen dominance is relative estrogen dominance. That's when you just have too much estrogen in relation to progesterone. And that doesn't, like I said, doesn't matter no matter what part of your life cycle you're in. These hormones are really important, and your lifestyle is what's going to influence the production or lack of that has the biggest influence on these two hormones. Do a lot of your women in your group feel like they struggle with hormone imbalances?
I think that we do have quite a fair amount that do. And I mean, some of them, it's just, it's the whole perimenopausal aspect because it's something new. So yes, you feel that something is a lot of them haven't been able to find a practitioner that is going to test everything. So it's something that we really work on inside of our coaching program, and being able to refer them to the right practitioner and get them. And the one lady that we work with is wonderful because she explains it just like you did, that you have to have estrogen in relative balance to the progesterone. And if you don't have that, then yes, you will be estrogen dominant, but she's never going to just label you and say you're estrogen dominant and there's nothing we can do about it. So then it's bringing the other hormones up into balance to where they need to be, and working with us through food and the meditation work and all of that that we do, that we can bring down the stress hormones.
It's funny because no matter what health problem we're talking about, it could be hormone related or fat loss or any other health issue. If people would just check off very simple things in their life, they could fix a majority of their health problems.
Yeah, no, for sure. And a lot of it goes back to just the simple stress things and what we can do there. And the fact is that I think that a lot of people don't realize what stress is. Yes, we have high stress lifestyles, but I mean, stress is as simple as what you choose to eat every day.
Yep. Exactly. If you're eating you know, I'm not saying you can never have processed food. I have processed food. It's all a matter of balance. But if you're mostly eating processed food or like high inflammatory foods, then you're just adding another stress to your body. If you're not eating a lot of nutrient dense foods and your body is starving at a cellular level, then you're more stressed out because your body doesn't have the chemicals it needs to execute these processes internally without certain catalysts. So basically everything going on in your body at all time is some sort of chemical reaction. But if you going back to like elementary science, like if certain chemical reactions cannot happen without certain chemicals or a catalyst to make it happen. So we are literally what we eat. If you are not giving your body what it needs, then you are starving at a cellular level, and then that comes with disease, etc.
Right. No,
You can
you're
be you can be overfed but still undernourished. So you could be living off of 3,000 calories of McDonald's every day. You're not getting a lot of nutrients. You're just getting a lot of filler.
right. That's so true. But I think you said actually something super profound in regards to if the nutrients and having that balance and the catalyst, because I don't think anyone ever thinks that exercising and eating goes to that level. It's always CICO, calories in versus calories out, and let's do this and let's do that. And it's not that simple, especially if you are dealing with hormone issues or thyroid issues or gut issues. All of those things, if you're not putting in the right balance, you're not going to get out what you think you should get out, because the body cannot physically do it because it's too much stress.
Yeah, 100%. Trying to remember what you said that made me think of something. I have ADD, so it's very easy for me to lose my train of thought.
You're so funny.
Sorry, but what was I say? Oh, exercise and nutrition, how they go hand in hand. Yeah, most people are only thinking, I want to lose weight, I want to look better.
Right.
They're thinking at the most shallow level, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look better. Most people are not thinking of like what's happening internally at like a microbiology level with these things that are happening. Like exercise is a form of physiology and biology, and then nutrition, they go together.
Yeah, they do. It's so crazy.
You can't have one without the other.
No,
Can't.
you really
Can't.
But I also think
exercise that diet.
No, you really can't. But I think that for most of the population, they do not understand that it goes to that level. Like it's kind of beyond comprehension. So then it's on us as coaches to be constantly educating that yes, what you are doing here is going to impact over here. Like, and maybe you won't see it right now, but you're going to see it next year or in 5 years. And then what are you going to do about it?
Yep, exactly. Let me go to my notes where I talk about perimenopause specifically, because I think people also don't have a very good understanding about perimenopause and menopause, and that a lot of those really undesirable symptoms that women experience are actually from perimenopause, not from menopause, like hair loss and vaginal dryness and lower libido, more irregular periods as you get closer to menopause, all bloating, abdominal fat gain, like that is perimenopause. And I always tell women who are in that, going through that or about to go through that, that it's like a second puberty. Like when you go through puberty, your hormones are here, there, they're everywhere. Your body is trying to figure out how to regulate this new process it's never done before. You've never had a menstrual cycle, so your body's doing something different. And then when you're going through perimenopause into menopause, it's like hormones here, there, everywhere. They're all over the place. But if you do very basic things and have a good, healthy lifestyle, you can minimize a lot of those symptoms and make that transition so much smoother. You don't have to suffer through hot flashes and night sweats and waking up all night long and not being able to go back to sleep. Like all of those issues can be addressed on a holistic level before you need to be taking synthetic hormones or medication. And I'm not saying those things don't serve a purpose, but unfortunately, a lot of doctors go straight to that when you're explaining some of these undesirable symptoms. Or women just, they don't know better. Like, oh, I could just eat certain foods and feel better instead of taking synthetic progesterone or synthetic estrogen and shutting down your body's actual ability to create those hormones itself.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
so the biggest thing is supporting your liver.
Yep.
Eating good quality protein. So minimizing the amount of synthetic protein like bars and powders. And those things, of course, serve a role when they're necessary. But ultimately, most of your protein should come from whole plant sources. So soy, spinach, hemp, chia, on and on, all the plant sources.
Right.
And then when you, and making sure that you're having regular bowel movements. If you are not having regular bowel movements, at least one good healthy bowel movement a day, then estrogen just cycles back into the body. You never get rid of that excess. And then you kind of end up with like this buildup of estrogen. This becomes less, well, this becomes more of an issue as you get closer to menopause because you're not ovulating as much, which means you're not producing as much progesterone. That means you have more estrogen to progesterone ratio. And then that's where all those very terrible symptoms come back into play. So pooping, super important, and supporting your liver.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think even with a lot of the members that we have here, I think that having not regular bowel movements is still somewhat of a problem. And it can be easily fixed, I believe, by, eating more vegetables, drinking a little more water, making sure we're getting some sort of activity every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you want to make sure you're eating enough fiber every day, at least 25 to 30 grams. Most people need at least 25 grams to have regular bowel movements, and not synthetic fiber like Metamucil.
Right.
You want like real fat soluble fiber or water soluble fiber. So things coming from avocado, raspberries, artichokes, oatmeal, almonds, broccoli. Those are all really good plant sources of fiber. And like you said, just regular activity, keep things moving.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Humans are not meant to be sedentary.
No, contrary to popular belief.
Well,
Yeah,
I think people think their 1 hour workout is enough. And I'm like,
yeah, no, I
we're
know.
not meant to sit for 23 hours a day.
No, if you think back through time, they didn't sit, and if they sat,
Ever.
they didn't even have a seat, and they like made their own seat because they were squatting. And it's so completely the opposite.
I know. It's kind of sad.
I agree.
Um,
Yes. Move more.
and sleep, man. Obviously, as women go through perimenopause, sleep is affected a lot. 7 hours should be minimum. I tell women 7 to 9 hours. That number might look a little bit different for you, whether it's 7, 8, or 9 hours. I'm personally somebody who needs 9 hours. But if you're waking up not feeling rested, or you're waking up frequently and this is affecting your sleep quality, then finding ways to create a better sleep environment, whether that's a cooler room, getting into like a good wind down routine at the end of the night. So that means not watching Netflix as you're going to sleep, like shutting the TV off 1 to 2 hours before bed, no blue light stimulation. Like people don't understand that their stress level could be reduced drastically if they just slept better. Like how much better do we show up in the world when we're well rested?
So much better.
I am not a nice lady when I'm tired.
I know. But again, I think it just goes back to lack of awareness and then being able to translate that, oh, maybe that is impacting my sleep. When there's like going back to studies and everything, there's actual studies that like say that lack of sleep causes diabetes. Like there's studies, they've done that. So why is that not going to affect your hormone production? I don't know.
Absolutely. Your blood sugar has a ton to do with cortisol, and your sleep has a lot to do with your cortisol regulation. So if you are not sleeping well, then this is going to impact every other area of your life. You're probably more stressed because you're tired, you're not sleeping, so you're not recovering from said stress, and it's just like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, 100%.
So keeping your hormones balanced really boils down to stress management, number one. Making sure that if you feel like you have some type of hormonal imbalance, that you, like Clarissa said, get a reliable practitioner to test your labs. Most doctors will not pull the amount of lab work that you need done to have a full comprehensive analysis of your hormones. Like even like GYNs, you can go and be like, I think that my sex hormones are off. And they might just look at estradiol and progesterone, and that'll be it. Meanwhile, there's like 10 other hormones they need to be looking at, including your blood sugar and thyroid. They're all codependent on one another. So some doctors are awesome. Very few that I have found. Most of them push back in some way of that's not necessary. So definitely get with Clarissa's person to get a
Yeah.
comprehensive panel. You
You
cannot
do.
address something unless you really know that it exists. Don't assume that you have hormonal issues. And even if you do, the first thing you have to do is check certain boxes before you can even think about taking supplements or anything else. Supplements are only beneficial if your lifestyle is in check. Because if you're not sleeping, you're not eating whole foods 80% of the time, you're not managing your stress, then supplements are going to do nothing.
You're so absolutely right.
Well, I find that people always, they want that magic
want-
pill.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. And you can't apply the magic pill if you don't know which one to apply.
Don't just grab at straws thinking, you know what?
Yeah, no.
I sound like I have estrogen dominance. I'm going to take these supplements that are supposed to help from that.
No, we're not firm believers in MD med, or what is that called? Is it MD med? Web.
Maybe MD. Yeah. WebMD. Yes.
WebMD, that's what I'm thinking of. Yes, we are not believers in that platform at all. I mean, yeah, go look at it, see what you think, and then take your information from there. Take your information from talking to a professional and get your doctor to test you. And if they don't want to, that's fine, because we have someone that can absolutely test all over the United States. So just let me know. I'm happy to hook you up with her.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, if you're not checking certain boxes with your lifestyle, these other things will do nothing for you. Eating enough dietary fat is really important. Your hormones are made out of fatty acids. So if you're not getting at least bare minimum 45 grams of healthy fats per day, then your body can't make hormones with something that's not there. So, healthy fats, avocados, coconut oil, olive oil, nuts, seeds, those are all really good sources of fat. And thankfully, to get to 45 grams, I could get that in one meal because I love fats. But low fat diets, those died in the 80s. Don't follow that. Fats are very important. Carbs, very important. Protein, very important. You need all three.
Yeah.
And if you then need supplements, then there are supplements that can help with helping you get rid of excess estrogen and naturally producing more progesterone. And I actually have a guide, Clarissa, that you can give to your community that can help them kind of figure out if they think that they have any type of estrogen dominance, and then healthy sources of food to help them support their liver better and their digestion. That way they can start at the most basic level. You got to address the basics before you worry about anything outside of those things.
Okay, that's super awesome of you. Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, anything else you want to talk about hormones before I scoot out of here?
Goodness, no, I honestly think we covered a lot about hormones on several different levels. So that was really freaking awesome of you.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you thought it was helpful. It's really hard for me to stay on one topic with hormones because
I know, because
there's so many. We didn't even talk about thyroid. Like I could have a whole separate education just on thyroid health and how important that is.
And that's usually I've found what's the easiest to do as far as like education goes. So like if you ever want to come back and talk about thyroid, we'll go for it.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Tons of clients that are low thyroid or Hashimoto's. So
Yep. Yep. I got a whole separate training on PCOS and Hashimoto's. I mean, they're kind of related
There.
in a way. PCOS is just becoming so prevalent now. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I think it's better to kind of break those down into those smaller, more digestible chunks.
Yes, there's a lot of
There is.
information.
Yeah, for sure. But thanks so much for joining us tonight, Amanda. I certainly enjoyed hearing your story, and I loved hearing all of the information. I'm sure everyone did too. We had quite a lot of people on Facebook, but nobody posted any questions.
All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to pop back in and answer them or pass the information to Clarissa to get the information to you. And if I don't know the answer, I know somebody else who will have it. We have such a good network of coaches.
We do. We'll find the answer always.
Always. Well, thanks for having me. I had a good time being here.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight, Amanda.
Of course.
And we'll have to come back and talk about thyroid.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.